Good Thursday evening. How is everyone this evening? It's good to see you. It's good to be seen by you. I, of course, am your happy, humble host, Bill Sylvie, aka the Dungeon Delver. That's me. How are you guys this evening? I hope you're doing well, because I'm doing okay. Hey, Tonka Todd made it for a live show. Welcome, Tonka. Glad you could be here. So, I've been straightening up a little bit in the hobby room, and I know it's kind of hard to see because, I don't have that 1080p that I want yet. Hopefully next month I can get the StreamYard thing and get it bumped up a little bit. Robert Phillips, good to see you. But GR, hello. But anyway, I've been moving some miniatures around. I got a lot of the shelves that are over there where you guys can't see that I hate. I got those mini shelves cleaned off, and I now have a shelf of glory and a science fiction shelf of glory, and it will be surrounded top and bottom by shelves of shame. And so that's what I've been doing. And about half of my unpainted minis are currently sitting in front of me there in the studio section. And one thing I noticed is, and this is my fault because I don't paint minis in a timely fashion. It's just a failing, a deep personal failing. But as everything is dusty, painted, unpainted, and I was thinking, how could I clean these off? And I tried a little bit of compressed air. Didn't work. Blew some dust out of the basement, out of the bases, rather, the basement, little crevasses in the bases, but just didn't do anything. And it occurred to me, it'll be tedious, but what I can do is get makeup blush brushes, which a lot of painters use for dry brushing also, and just use those to individually dust the minis and then focus on getting them painted before they get caked up with dust again. Now, the bare metal minis, those I can just wash. The primed minis, it depends. The painted minis, no, I got to dust those. So that's just kind of the task that lays before me. And, I was handling so much dusty stuff today. I was sneezing and coughing uncontrollably. But something else that's going to come to this shelf is more shelves. As you might notice, these are closer together. This guy here, the Shelf of Glory, is a structural shelf. It's immobile. I can't take it out. I can't move it higher or lower, which is kind of a pain in the ass for large books on these shelves. But it is what it is. But the shelves above and below, I can move to a degree. So the spacing is about 1 inch. So I'm going to get a couple more shelves in here. Probably going to get those cut tomorrow. And I'll get more shelves in there, and I'll get the unpainted minis in there, and I'll get the tools organized a little bit better. And then the shelf you can't see, the bookcase rather, you can't see, which is full of computer garbage, is going to get purged and cleaned even more and open up room for other stuff that's still on shelves around the man cave. And I can get like that wall over there, which you guys can't see, but you've seen before when I pan the camera around. I can get the precarious wire shelves that are hanging up there. I can get those down. And I may move the box shelves. They're like these shadow box shelves. And you've seen one over my head, over on this wall that's there. But I may put them up above all the stuff that is above me, even above the bookshelves, for just oddments and endments. I don't know 100% yet. But a lot of the little curio shelves that are lining the walls in here that I thought were really cool and neat a year ago, that I look at now and I'm like, I want those gone. So I'll be able to get those down. Anyway, that's what I got up to with today. But anyhow, last night, Kyle stopped by. We had a lot of fun. We had so much fun. Apparently, YouTube thinks we had too much fun and demonetized the video. But I filed an appeal, so we'll see if they let me keep making money off of last night's little fracas with Kyle. I don't know what we could have said or done that pissed YouTube off so much, but what are we going to do, right? But anyway, and in case there's anyone over on Facebook watching, greetings to our Facebook friends. Hope you're all having a fine evening. So tonight we're going to continue a little something, a little topic. And before we start that, I got a compliment from someone today, but it kind of made me do the dog, kind of thing. And that was somebody said to me on Discord, not my Discord channel, on a sports Discord channel that has enough subdivisions for off-topic chatter that I feel comfortable advertising my live stream / YouTube channel there. That I was like, yeah, hear this, I'll just advertise it there. You guys can come and watch me. I now realize that in addition to being Alabama football fans, you're also nerds. So here's a nerdy thing you can do. And somebody responded back after I posted up the link to today's. I don't give a damn about Dungeons and Dragons, but I love the thumbnails to your videos, so I subscribed. Well, awesome. Thank you. Luther says, wasn't able to join the fray last night. Any wisdom gained or world-shaking decisions? No. We had fun. We talked about medieval armor and the costs associated with it, and a lot of cool stuff that you can incorporate into your D&D games based on the book that we talked about. And we also talked about a cheesy 80s action movie called Band of the Hand, and then we ran out of time. So that's about it. That's what we got up to yesterday. And tonight we're going to talk about Assault on the AERIE of the Slave Lords, where the Slavers gets its module code from, A for AERIE. Now, growing up reading The Hobbit and reading about the Eagles AERIE, it was spelled with an E. And I don't know if that's an Anglicization versus an Americanization, or if it's an old way of spelling it. But there we are. The A series is AERIE with an A. So we'll go with it. We'll go with it. And tonight's is an interesting entry into the Slave Lords series, Assault on the AERIE of the Slave Lords. Now, this was written by frequent. I think I can say frequent at this point. Yeah, I'm comfortable saying that. Frequent show guest Alan Hammock, who's an all-around swell guy. And in hindsight, maybe I should have asked Alan to come on and talk to us a little bit about Assault on the AERIE of the Slave Lords, since it's his baby. But let's go ahead and roll up our sleeves now. We're not going to get done with this tonight. All right? We're gonna dig into this a little bit. We're just for an hour, maybe for a little bit longer, maybe for a little less long. We'll see. We're just rolling and having fun. But like all of our module deep dives, we'll explore it as we go. So let's go ahead and take a look at that. I'm going to bring the screen in here. It's going to share on this sucker. Share screen. Yeah. All right, and there we have it. All of its orange gloriousness. Dungeon Module A3, Assault on the Area of the Slave Lords by Alan Hammock. That's right. I told you. I wasn't lying. See? I told you the truth. By Alan Hammock right there. An adventure for character levels 4 to 7. Now, first thing, I think if you're playing these things in order and not as contest modules, honestly, I think the first module should be 4 to 7. I think by the time you get to this point, you should be looking at 5th through 8th. That's my honest hot take. Hot take. Bill thinks it should be 5th through 8th. But that's my feeling on it, because it gets tougher. Now, Jeff D gave us some great cover art for A1. Jim Rosloff, of course, hit us with some beautiful pieces in A2. And the back piece, of course, by Errol Otis. Here, we go back to Jeff D, and we get a panorama of the slavers themselves. And Batman on the shield. Look at that. We have these various slave lords. Fielta right there in dead center where he should be. Exactly, Luther. Luther's been reading ahead. I like that. So we'll read the cover blurb here. Into the Draken's Grab Mountains, hot on the trail of the marauding slavers, you and your fellow adventurers plunge deep into the hostile hills. Spurred on by your past success, you now seek the heart of the slaver conspiracy. But hurry! You must move quickly before the slavers recover from your previous forays and attack. This module was originally used for the official Advanced Dungeons & Dragons tournament at the Gen Con 13 convention and is the third in a series of 4 related tournament modules from TSR. The module contains a challenging scenario, a tournament scoring system, plus 9 pre-rolled play-tested tournament characters. Also included are large-scale referees maps, notes, and background information. A3 is a complete adventure in itself, but is also a companion to A1, Slave Pits of the Undercity, A2, Secret of the Slaver's Stockade, and A4, In the Dungeons of the Slave Lords. Be sure to look for other exciting adventure modules from the Game Wizards at TSR. All right. Let's dig into this bad boy. Then we got a guy in plate. When I was a kid and I would glimpse this, I thought that was a robot. It's D&D. It could have been, but it is not. That is just some more highly stylistic artwork from Jeff D there. So the background for this module is that presuming you're running this after A2 and presuming the party is successful, you go further into the Draken's Grab Hills, which are some mountains along the wild coast in the Pomarge. And you find out there's a hidden city there, or a hidden town at least, called Suderham. First bit of trivia, and if you've watched our interviews with Alan Hammock, you know this already. That's right, Praxis. You know this. You know this already. No, I don't think it's Eberron Warforged race. This is just a dude in armor. But Suderham, it's an old English or Germanic word that literally means south home. In the winter of 78, when Alan Hammock was working for TSR in Wisconsin, he was feeling a little homesick for sweet home Alabama. So he gave the slavers' town the name of Suderham, but also meant it as a bit of a nod, a tip of the cap to his friend and office mate, David Sutherland. Sutherland and Suderham mean the same thing. Southern home. Now you know the rest of the story. But we don't just get deposited into Suderham straight away. We do not. But let's look at the tournament notes real quick here. So it says, originally run at the Gen Con 13 convention, this module contains only 2 parts of the 7-part Advanced Dungeons & Dragons Open Tournament, in which over 900 gamers participated. To replay the entire tournament, it is necessary to have the following modules in addition to this one: A1, A2, and A4. Nice little nice soft selling of the product, Alan. Each first round, A1, A2, A3-A, is scheduled to last for 3 hours, as are the semifinal A3-B and C and final A4 rounds. Teams are scored based on how far they penetrate in the 3 hours, with members surviving being a factor as well. DMs in an informal or small tournament might wish to score the team at that point, then, if there is time, continue through the rest of the module just for the enjoyment of the players and the DM. And then we have the admonitions. They can't, the tournament characters can't change their equipment, can't change their spells. There's no wandering monsters. Monsters never surrender or anything. Characters don't advance in level. And we have a scoring system at the end of the module. Cave encounter table. Encounters will never occur during tournament play. Otherwise, encounters will occur on a 1 in 8 chance. Check each turn. If an encounter occurs, roll percentage dice to determine the type of monsters encountered. And then we have here bugbears, gnolls, leprechauns, lucratas, ogres, giant spiders, and wights. 4 wights. Woof! Better hope your cleric is alive and kicking and really well and stocked up with holy water, guys. Now, one thing I want to look at here. All of the previous modules have said tournament start. Lovely little piece by Errol Otis there. Have said tournament start. Like they start you in a given place. A3? No. And the previous 2 modules, let's zip down here. There it is. Ostensibly one of the best maps ever published in a D&D module, because you can use it for any small walled city. It's awesome. I love it to pieces. But I do hate the scroll wheel here. And there's the Isle of the Slave Lords, where Suderham is located. But one thing I want you to notice, you get to the dungeon map, please. Dungeony areas, cave map, sewer map, a keyed map of Suderham. And that excellent Errol Otis back piece art with the ankylosaur. Just to get some use out of the dinosaurs in the monster manual. There's one. There's no shaded tournament only. The entire module, other than non-wandering monsters, and it might indicate, tournament damage, is a fixed amount. You don't roll it. Skara Brae, I think, is the town in Bard's Tale. Well, it depends on which Bard's Tale you're talking about, Praxis. But anyway, there are no shaded tournament-only areas. Except the sewer map. You don't go wandering around in the sewer. There is just one area to go to in the sewer. Everything else is open to the party, the city, everything. The scum slum of Suderham. Greetings, Lord Corion. Welcome, welcome. No interior maps of the Sign of the White Knight or Denhouse Pub and Grub. Tournament time didn't allow, I guess. But that gives it to the DM to fill in and have some fun with. And we get a good layout of the island itself. The extinct volcano crater, woods to have encounters in, Draken Keep, the farming areas, Dragon Meadow. And here, of course, are our characters, same as they ever were. Tournament characters for Part A. Tournament characters for the semi-final round, Parts B and C. And here's our scoring sheet. Now, interestingly enough, if you're going to have all parts of this played as a tournament, honestly, I think you should concatenate all of the rules and not just use them separately for each module. I think you should make up a rule book, get yourself a notebook, plot and plan all of this stuff out. So obviously there are room specific things in A1 when it says if they did this, if they did that. But the point I'm going to make is tournament missile fire into melee. If characters wish to fire missiles into melee, the following simpler system shall be used in place of normal AD&D procedures as described in the Dungeon Master's Guide. The DM secretly determines the real target as follows. Find the total man-sized units. Small creature, half. Man-sized equals 1. Larger equals 1.5. Huge, e.g. Ankh or Dragon, equals 2. Roll randomly to determine which man-sized unit becomes the target of the missile. Determine by half units if necessary. The player rolls a 2-hit roll, announcing the adjusted total to the DM. The DM compares the number to the armor class of the actual target, not necessarily the intended one, to determine this. Any miss will miss the entire melee and never hits an alternate target. It is kind of Tortuga-like. And again, you can have a lot of fun with this. I mean, if you know you're not going to run the A series in a given campaign for a given set of characters, why not use this town and its map are too cool to not use elsewhere. So, a system of sorts for firing into melee. And you may want to do that across the entire run of the A series. You may just want to do it here. Whatever you're most comfortable with. Frankly, I don't think that's any less clunky than the percentage system in the Dungeon Master's Guide. That's just me. Nice piece of Willingham art there. Here we get introduced, just because ropers weren't bad enough, this is the store roper. So with every module, we're getting new and exciting monsters. There's enough critters in here to fill up a small monster manual. So let's go back to the top. Let's take a look at the first weird entry. Looking at all this awesome art as we kind of zip back by. So the first odd thing we come to is the salt slide. And this always kind of blew my mind as a kid. The rough-hewn north passage ends in a dimly seen door. As the party approaches within 40 feet of the door, the floor suddenly drops out from underneath the lead characters. They land on a great pile of salt and begin to slide rapidly down into the darkness. Up to the first 2 ranks of the party will fall through the floor. The floor section will snap shut after 1 round unless it is held or spiked open. All those who fall will drop 15 feet and take 1 to 6 points of damage. This trap can be found by searching for traps or by magical means and can be sprung safely if discovered. The door at the end of the hallway is false. There's a 20% chance that a character falling through the trap will drop 1 or more items, 1-2, that are in hand. Any object dropped in the salt mountain has a 75% chance of being lost forever. In addition, fragile items like flasks of oil or potions may break. Use the appropriate save versus fall, with penalties for a height canceled by the soft impact surface. For example, a ceramic oil flask will save on a roll of 11 or better. Those sliding down the mountain of salt will pass through a large natural chute which has a strange luminous fungus growing upon the walls. The cavern in the salt remained from thousands of years ago when the subterranean river Leth wended its way through here. The combination of the fungal radiation and the salt acts as a slow spell lasting 5 turns. Neutralize poison or dispel magic will counter its effects. Salt taken from the slide area immediately becomes normal salt with no special properties. Any character who does not contact the salt will not be slowed. For example, those using a fly spell or one of the bark toboggans found in room B. Armor or clothing will not negate the salt's effects. However, if a character attempts to slide down on a large shield, he or she will have only a 40%, minus his or her dexterity, chance of being slowed. Descent will take 1 round of tumbling, sliding, flying, or levitating. It will take 2 rounds for a controlled descent using ropes. So that's the first weird thing. The second one, iodized Himalayan or kosher. I'm going to go out on a limb and say it's probably Himalayan. So describe it as pink. So the next weird thing, you've got the curtain of blue fire, which is basically an electrical arc. The blue fire is actually a field of magical force that will strike any character who tries to walk it through it for 16 points of electrical damage. Save versus breath weapons for 8 points. A character who walks across the bridge after coating him or herself with a thick white goo will suffer only half damage. Save for 8 points or 4 points. Whenever the electricity strikes a character for damage, including a thief climbing the walls, a dexterity check must be made to see if the character falls into the goo. And there is a legendary short sword lying at the bottom of the goo pit, which is right down there with the Grimtooth's traps in terms of nastiness. It's 10 feet deep. However, the goo can be breathed without difficulty, and any taken in the body is harmlessly absorbed. Who's going to think to do that, though? All right, you're in something that's the consistency of tapioca pudding. I'm holding my breath. I'm casting, Dispel magic negates natural radiation. You're darn right it does. So you can find the Sword of Lions. While it is sheathed, the wearer is invisible as the spell invisibility until he or she attacks. When the sword is drawn, the invisibility ends, but the sword itself is always invisible. Characters who wear the Ring of Free Action may move through the white goo with no difficulty. Party members will discover as they leave the pool that the sticky white goo has coated their body and will begin to harden as it dries. For the next 5 turns of drying goo will impair fighting capability. Those so covered will attack and defend at -2. At the end of 5 turns, the rubbery material will be solid enough to peel off easily. The drying process cannot be speeded up by any means, nor can the goo be removed with water, oil, or any other solvent. Of course, I would maybe ask, if you're allowing the cantrip, could the cantrip clean get it off? What if the character struck with a fire attack? That's why I wish I had Alan Hammock on the show. He could tell us this because he wrote this cockamamie thing. And I say that with the greatest of affection because I do like this module. But something that I really like is there's the encounter with a Steroper A7. We have Traps, the hanging rope. This is perhaps one of my favorite gotchas in this series. The throne room. This room is locked. The lock must be picked or shattered. 1 turn smashing with weapons before entering. The room is 130 feet long, 100 feet wide, and 30 to 40 feet tall. There are 4 rows of pillars, 2 on each side of the room, with a long space between them that is occupied by a large reptilian creature with a heavy shell and a tail that looks like a giant mace. At the far end of the room is a throne. Sitting there is a tall, emaciated gnoll-like figure whose eyes glow amber. The creature bears a 7-foot-long flail with 3 massive heads. To the right of the creature, or to the right of the great marble throne, there are 6 tall gnolls with halberds, and to the left are 6 leering ghouls. A loud bellow breaks out from the reptile as it charges. The occupants of this room will not be surprised, as there is a small peephole in the wall looking out into the corridor. All of the figures described to the players are illusions. The illusion of the ankylosaur hides a rust monster. The illusion of the gnoll god ye know who on the throne hides Wimple Frump, a lackluster illusionist of the 8th level. He has been hired by the slave lords to guard this entrance to their city. Upon the throne which Wimple sits has special magical enchantments to maintain these illusions. The ghouls and gnolls are illusions. The real guards, 5 gnolls, are hiding amongst the pillars and will pepper the party with arrows when they enter. When the gnolls are discovered, they will protect the illusionist. Yeah, Wimple's just trying to make a living. Oh, that hurts. Sorry, guys. But I always thought that was just the coolest gotcha. It's like you got your party somewhere between 4th and 7th level. You kick down the door. You go in the room. There's an ankylosaur. But sitting on the throne is ye know who. I mean, how scary? How scary is that to a mid-level party that they've just walked into? That they've just walked into a demon, a capital D demon. And of course it's not. There's a glass wall in front of the throne so that Wimple may cast his spells without fear of being struck by missiles. This wall is impervious to physical missiles, though certain spells like lightning bolt may shatter it. You don't know, you know who at 4th level. Yeah, no kidding. I mean, that should be a good hint to the party that something is not exactly right. I mean, Yeah, okay, our highest level character, 6th level. Hey, who's that sitting down on the throne? One of the demon lords, one of the great demon princes of the abyss. Oh, I see. Okay, well, goodbye. Of course, that may be the point of having him there. Oh, man. Probably going to be a shorter video tonight, guys. Because my throat is in a lot of pain right now. And of course, you've got the rust monster, which will fight till slain, unless you dump out some iron spikes. Lackluster at 8th level. How wimpy is Wimple? The slave lords must despise him. Well, Robert, it could be that he just has poor spell choice. All right, so Wimple will use fear, following with paralyzation. He'll cast blur on himself, emotion, hopelessness. Okay, I'm actually starting to believe Robert now that, yeah, no kidding. Blindness on a party spellcaster, color spray twice, darkness in which he will try to escape. As he leaves the room, he'll revert to his true form, a weazened old man in tattered clothing. After passing through the secret door, he will activate a special lock that prevents the door from being opened for 10 turns and make his escape. He has bracers of defense armor class 4 and a dagger plus 2. The throne has a hidden panel which can be detected by tapping or similar methods. After searching for 1 turn, the party will discover how to open the panel, which contains a duplicate key to the secret door and a map to Part B, the hidden city of Suderham. So that's just all in the entry cave level. Did I miss? I want to check something. I think it's later. I want to have a quick look. The goo, the hanging rope, the Steroper, Piercer Cavern, Curtain of Blue Fire, Hyenodon Feeding Pen, Guard Room. No, okay, so it must be later. We'll get to it, but there's a rather insidious trap that I want to point out especially. And it's really nice because it should be an inspiration to DMs to not necessarily take things that are in the rules 100%. Like if you want to change something up, here's a good example of how to change something up and make it a little bit more sinister. And we'll get to that. So we have the city. And a nice description of it. Now, this is where something interesting comes in. This is where something kind of interesting comes in. Because, oops, lost my, where'd you guys go? The glass wall and the throne are oddball magic items. Yes, they are. Yes, they are, Jay. There are people in Suderham who may just be trying to make their way. And you may find help unlooked for. All of the buildings in the city of Suderham are 1 story tall unless otherwise noted. There are no wandering monsters in the city for tournament play, but there are patrols of guards described later. Lighting is by oil lamps suspended from posts. The posts are positioned on every street, corner, and in the middle of each block, thus providing overlapping areas of illumination. Those businesses that are open will have 2 oil lamps in front of them. Thus, the business district is well lit, while other areas of the city are somewhat darker. And let's look at the city encounters. And this is at night. They occur on a 1 in 6, check each turn, and then roll percentage. Assassins, or an assassin, bandits, a beggar, a cleric, a drunk, ghoul or ghast, Luther says, don't say slaves, say prisoners with jobs. Is that from Thor Ragnarok? Is that Jeff Goldblum when he's talking about the people who work on the battle world, the arena world? Let's see. Cleric, drunk, ghoul or ghast, guard patrol, harlot, rakshasha, that's bad, slaver, 1 to 10 slavers will be encountered. They will frequently be wealthy, decadent boors with no inclination for combat. They will be interested in any business talk, sources of new slaves, etc. And then all of their encounters are listed in the Dungeon Master's Guide. Oh, and then a thief or a wight. So your best hope is a cleric, a drunk, a harlot, or a beggar. Yeah, I got to tell you, the Thor Ragnarok, Jeff Goldblum's performance in that is just awesome. You know, he's the guard threatens somebody. He's like, "What? No, don't use the melt stick. What? No, that isn't a melt stick offense." The melt stick. And then we get back into the description of Sudurham. Most people in the city, whether encountered on the street or in a tavern, will be able to give directions to shops, other inns, and important buildings like the arena, but not to residences. If questioned concerning the treasury or storage warehouses, there's a 75% likelihood that they will report the party to a guard patrol after they leave. Directions will be general, locating the quarter of the city the building is in, but nothing more specific. For example, a map shop, there's one over in the official quarter, that's southwest, but I'm not sure where. Other quarters are the military, northwest, the wealthy, northeast, and the thieves' quarter, southeast. Then we have some taverns. It should be noted that the taverns are, more often than not, frequented by more than one type of person or class of character than others. In these taverns, and the guilds as well, of course, the minority classes are seen as inferior and will not receive a convivial welcome. At the Fighting Man's Haven, for example, a cleric or magic user that enters will probably sit alone or be held up for ridicule by the fighters there. Violence will probably be limited to brawling or throwing the intruder out. I just love the detail here. This is something, you know, you don't hear me fault Gary very often on this show, and for good reason. Gary did us a disservice by not releasing an urban AD&D module. Something like this, an example city block, at least in the Dungeon Master's Guide. I know, do it yourself. But when Gary would get going on points like this, his skill was just sublime. And this is Alan Hammett. Why didn't they say, "Hey, Alan, this is awesome sauce. Write a city book for us"? And Alan edited the world of Greyhawk. Can you imagine all of what he's breathing into this module here? But spread out across the entire city of Greyhawk? How fantastic would that have been? Maybe I'm a softie for that kind of thing, for saying that I would have liked to have had it all detailed out myself, but oh my goodness. Well, we have what we have. Like most city-states, Suderham mints its own money and insists that it be used within the city. Anyone attempting to purchase items with non-Suderham money will be directed to the money changer. The city charges a 10% tax on exchanged money, and the money changer adds a tidy 5% profit for himself. If anyone insists on using non-Suderham money or tries to pass anything other than the official money after their first warning, guards will be called. Penalty for possession of unofficial money after being warned is confiscation of all money and possessions. Now that's something to flavor your campaign world with. I mean, if you're out in the Sultanate of Zeef, a bunch of coins you got in the city of Greyhawk shouldn't necessarily work. Luther says, if I DM this module, the coins minted by Suderham will have Bill's face on them. Well, thank you. Should be like my face on one side and Alan's face on the other. I'll leave it to you to decide which is heads and which is tails. And then we have a guard patrol described. Let's see. Sorry, lost my place, everyone. Bear with me just a minute. I was also, whoops. It's also getting messaged there. Someone with a 3D printer make this coin happen. Well, I can make one for me, but I don't have a good profile picture of Alan Hammock to use. So, all right. So we get a nice introduction here to the module. This is very well written. I know we slag box text a lot, but I personally think this is pretty well written. This is the tournament start semifinal round. Your party is done well. You've made your way through a secret underground passage to a gate hidden by bushes and shrubs. The passage must have run far underground, for the hill is on an island in the center of a large crater lake. I love crater lakes. I think they're the coolest things in the world. The group comes out on the rocky slopes of a hill in the shadow of an extinct volcano, Mount Flammenblut. That's Fireblood, by the way. Below you lies the island, the AERIE of the slave lords. It is now clear why no military force could ever make a successful assault. The one pass that leads from the known Dragon's Grab trails to the slave lord's stronghold is narrow and winding. A small force could effectively guard it and destroy all enemies. Even if an army could force its way through the pass, it would have no way to cross the crater lake. I think a determined enough army using enough magic could, Alan, but that's just me. Greetings, Jehovah. Oh, and there is something I want to show off when we finish our deep dive here. I have something cool to show you guys that has to do with this. You have emerged high above your goal, the hidden city of Suderham. Its mighty walls make it impregnable, so a more subtle method of entry is called for. You observe Suderham from afar for the rest of the afternoon. Patrols on the wall and in the street are frequent, more so in the western sector than in the lower class southeastern section. Public disturbances appear to be punished quickly and harshly. It is time to review your situation. The kings, dukes, and lords who hired you have made good on their part of the bargain, healing and resurrecting your comrades who were wounded or slain. In your previous adventures, you lost some magic items but obtained others, and you now find yourself equipped as indicated. Ready for action, you descend towards the ramshackle buildings and dock area outside the city walls. In the slum sections outside the city, you encounter a dozen or so richly attired people in fine silken robes, disdainfully making their way towards the city gate. Guessing them to be buyers of slaves, your party ambushes and subdues the frightened aristocrats without difficulty. Like Alan just sort of rolls us with that. You learn from them that Suderham is known as the City of the Nine dreaded slave lords. It is an imposing stronghold guarded by elite troops culled from the races of the dozen or more lands where slavers hold sway. You learn that within the city is a well-guarded stronghold, impossible for so small a party as yours to penetrate. However, there are rumors of subterranean passageways beneath the city used only by the slave lords and their agents. Certain contacts in the city will have clues which can lead you to this passageway. A search of your prisoners reveals papers that will grant entry into the city, and their fine robes will effectively cover your armor if no one looks too closely. You have chosen to enter the city at sunset to improve your disguise and to avoid unnecessary encounters and challenges. Tying up the prisoners, you also realize you must act quickly. Guards might find your prisoners, or escaped enemies from previous adventures might arrive to give warning of your coming. One of your prisoners laughs before you gag him. You fools, the slave lords know everything their enemies do. You haven't a chance. Somebody's sucking around for a dagger in the back. And there's the main gate as illustrated by Errol Otis. And isn't that lovely? Isn't that an awesome looking thing? And then we get into the city proper. And here's where we get a little bit of help for the players. As you pass through the main gate and take your first steps into the city, a weazened, limping beggar hobbles up and asks for alms. The beggar, upon closing with the party, whispers that he is an agent of those who hired the players. He says, "Seek out the ivory paladin," and then disappears into the passageway, and it's a reference to the sign of the White Knight. We have some guard towers described. The Fighting Man's Haven Tavern and the Thieves' Quarter. Sign of the Waltzing Werebear. You gotta love it. Food store, trinket shop. These are all closed. Money changer shop. House of Ill Repute, sign of the Mermaid. It's a bawdy house. It's in the midst of a boisterous party. 9 men, normal human townsfolk, and 12 women in scant attire, drinking and singing in the main room. They will be delighted to see newcomers and ask the party to stay for the fun, but will not be offended if refused. See, we don't have to go into great detail there. Don't have to be crass. Don't have to know what everybody's preference is. We have another House of Ill Repute, sign of the Rose. Constructed of wood and is badly in need of paint. Above the door is a painted cluster of red roses. All is quiet within. Inside the doorway is a small room with a corridor visible beyond. The madam reclines upon a couch and sips from a small goblet. Other comfortable furniture is arranged along the walls, and upon a polished wooden table near the couch sit several full decanters containing various colors of liquids. I know, I like Bawdy House too. The madam will languidly welcome the party and make praising remarks upon the robustness of the fighters or handsomeness of the clerics. She will wave towards the hallway and announce that they may go and choose what room they will. All of her girls are presently unoccupied. When the party checks, they will discover most of the rooms to be normal Bawdy House rooms, each containing a large bed, other furniture, and a young, pretty, half-dressed woman. One room, however, is empty of women, and under the bed is a trap door entrance to a secret passage leading to the catacombs. The passage resembles a section of the city's sewer system. Now, here's a bit of fun you could have with this. If you were in the mood, I think, as a DM, to further flesh out the city of Suderham, you could have the madam as a deep cover agent, or maybe she just, she likes her business but doesn't like the slavers. Maybe she knows some of her girls are not there by their own free will, rather. And she does what she can to protect them. Maybe she'll tell the players to go there once she's sure of their provenance. Maybe she's a magic user. Just a few ideas, just a little bit of interesting fun you can have with it. And then we have the Inn of the White Knight, mentioned by the beggar. This large 2-story building is constructed of wood and stonework. Above the door is a painted chess piece, a white knight. The inn is open for business, and the sounds of people eating and drinking come from within. Are there paintings of the employees outside the room, or is this random? I would leave that up to the DM. I would say if you wanted to do that, you could go with it. And hey, if you're going to be ecumenical, maybe there's men in there too. Let's see. A stairway on the north side appears to lead to the private rooms of the upper story. There are many sets of tables and benches, half of which are occupied by normal human travelers and merchants, busily engaged in having their dinners. On the east side of the dining area is the bar counter, behind which works an overweight, sweating bartender. If the bartender is given 10 gold pieces or more, he will say, "Not all who lie may be resting." For 50 or more gold, he will add that, "Learn from the knowledge that never dies." The first refers to the bawdy house at B13 in the Thieves' Quarter, the second to the sage and his books at B29 and the official quarter. He will actively encourage bribes if possible. Armor shop closed. For non-tournament play, this is a noisy place with a huge forge in the background and many workers hammering and polishing as they create fine weapons and armor. Most armor types are listed in the player's handbook, are available at the listed cost plus 10%. Interesting to note that we have the gambling hall, bouncing bugbear, the Assassin's Guild. See, there's a ton of cool stuff in here, guys. Even if you're not going to use this. I mean, you can use these locations, flesh out your own major city, or use this completely intact, or make this as a quarter of a city. We have a tavern for magic users, the sign of the magic missile, Den House Pub and Grub, ARS, the cut purse, he'll attempt to pick the pockets of the party but fail, and the attempt will be noticed by the would-be victim. If menaced by a party member, he will worm his way through the crowd to a table in the northeast corner where 4 brigand friends will help him fight. If a melee breaks out, some revelers will clear out the bar so there is enough space to fight, while the others will watch and cheer for the winning side. Blacksmith and alchemy shops that are closed. Maps and charts library. Again, more useful information. Damien, I recognize that reference. The treasury. With a lot of treasure in it. and a lot of guards and a lot of traps. The Temple of the Earth Dragon, which sounds like something out of Avatar: The Last Airbender, and I like it, and I approve of it. But what we are looking for, by the way, that is an absolutely gorgeous. Look at that Bill Willingham illustration. That's just awesome in every way. We have a Wizard's Guild, jeweler's shop, and finally we come to the Slave Lord Stronghold. We'll get back to that. We're kind of moving through this, sort of picking things out. A lovely hello by Jeff D there. The Clever Cudgel. Now, I can't help but think that maybe that's a little bit of a reference to Jack Vance. A rich and well-kept exterior, a successful establishment. Above each door is painted a sign depicting an animated quarterstaff beating a halfling. There is a sound of singing and the rhythmic thumping of mugs coming from the interior. Residences, abandoned residence. That has a passageway leading into it. House of Ill Repute, the Wild Cat. And we have rakes trying to goad the characters into fighting with them. And then we get down into the catacombs. And this is, I wanted to mention this. I definitely wanted to come to this. Let me see if I can find it real quick. Minotaur's Lair. The next time we get into the module, we're going to look at other details that I've kind of skimmed over. A staff beating a halfling. How is that how golf was created on Oath? Yeah, probably, Damien. Here it is. One of my favorite things in the whole module. Cunning gelatinous cubes. And this is what I meant when I said you guys should absolutely break the mold, or in this case, the Jell-O mold, in how you handle certain modules. The air in this chamber is foul and clinging. A thick, translucent slime covers the floor and trails out along the passage at the far end of the chamber. As soon as the first rank of the party walks on to the 10 by 20 area marked by the dotted lines, a 1-foot thick slab of stone tilts, spilling them into a pit on top of a gelatinous cube. Characters in the second rank must save versus paralyzation to avoid falling into the pit. Every round, a character who is in contact with the cube will take 2 to 8 points of damage and must save versus paralyzation or become paralyzed for 5 to 20 rounds. In addition, once per round, the cube will extend a pseudopod and strike an opponent up to 15 feet away. The pit is 10 feet wide, 20 feet long, and 5 feet deep. The cube has altered its shape to fit this area. And of course, there's some stuff in the cube. 70 gold pieces plus 3 longsword, chainmail plus 1, and an Ioun stone plus 1 armor class and saves. Whoops. Now, this is where it gets cool and cruel. If the party searches for treasure before looking around the corner, they will not see the second gelatinous cube that is advancing to attack. This cube will move quickly in through the far opening and into the pit, altering its shape to land on any characters there. all those searching for treasures. All such characters will automatically take damage and must save against paralysis. Characters who are not paralyzed are at -4 to hit and only do half damage. This cube attacks as the first cube in all respects. Gelatinous cubes that are smart enough to use team tactics. That's what I'm talking about, guys. That's what I mean when I say this module gives the DM the chance to bring really unusual stuff. Now, the next time we cover this module, which will be tomorrow evening, we're going to delve into some of the other areas, some of the other unusual bits, how this all kind of fits together, look a bit more at the map. If we have time, we'll get into the council chamber of the slave lords, but it almost deserves an entire show by itself. It almost deserves an entire show by itself because the fight against the slave lords is meant to be unbeatable. It's meant to be unbeatable. Did you ever play the original Doom and you fight through all parts of maybe the shareware version or whatever, and you take that last teleporter after you beat the Bruiser Brothers, the two Barons of Hell, and you're teleported into a room with a hurt floor, and there's monsters in there that are attacking you at the same time. It's pitch black, hurt floor, monsters are attacking you, and then you get the message on the screen, hey, aren't you supposed to beat the bad guys and be the big hero and win? Where's your big reward? And then it tells you, to buy the rest of Doom and play it. Well, that is kind of what the fight against the slave lords is. And we're going to go into detail in that fight against the slave lords. I really want to unpack it. If you, the DM, play the fight against the slave lords exactly as Alan outlines it, they'll probably beat the party handily. But there is a chance that your players will use good enough tactics that they'll be able to carry the day. And ultimately, well, we'll see. We'll see what happens with that. Michael Rooney says, my least favorite A module. Both dungeons don't make a lot of sense. It's hard to logically explain why these monsters are waiting there, but this has some amazing D and Otis art. Okay, so I definitely think it does. Hello, Dungeon Minister. I'm going to stop sharing that screen now. Well, the slave lords have used the monsters as traps. That's why they're there. They're there as a very advanced security system. I think if you take the cleverness of the slave lords into account, if this was just out in the middle of nowhere, some abandoned ruin or something like that, I would agree with you. I would absolutely agree with you. But I think if you take into account the fact that the slave lords have created this security system to keep out the unwanted. They know where to go to avoid all the silliness. They can get in or out of the Crater Lake area with no problem. If you view it through that lens, Michael, I think you might see that it makes a little bit more sense. But ultimately, it is Dungeons and Dragons, so sometimes you just got to shrug and say, an evil wizard did it. Dungeon Minister says, man, I keep missing these. Well, we're always here. I put up the thing. Did you not see the thing on Discord? Well, if you just came by, not you, Dungeon Minister, but you in general, folks out there, if you just came by and you're like, I didn't see any notification about this. This is pretty cool. You got a good channel there, Froggy. Referring to my voice. Then click that subscribe button. Click that bell icon for notifications. Jack Photon just wants to know how the evil wizard did it. Magic. It's magic. I ain't got to explain shit. But anyway, yeah, just that throne way back when. Oh, okay. So I want to address that in just a second. But yes, please do click the subscribe button, click the bell icon for notifications. If you like the video, give it a thumbs up and leave a comment. If you didn't like the video, give it a thumbs down and leave a comment and tell me why. I would love to know. So Jack brings up an interesting point, something I think we can almost wrap with tonight, because I want to, of course, thank those who do. What I discovered early on, both as a young DM and coming back to DMing in the mid-late 90s, as a DM, whether something is mechanical or whatever, don't get bogged down in trying to make certain things make sense. Think for a second about Raiders of the Lost Ark. When Indy is going through the Mayan temple, there is a spot at which, if you break a beam of light, a trap slides out. Think about that for a second. If you break a beam of light, if you pass through a shaft of sunlight, the spike trap comes out. Why? Why? Why would it do that? How do those stones, if you push down on them, fire a dart across the room? You can make a little bit more of an explanation for how that works. Because it's like, well, there's a length of pipes made out of hollow bamboo tubes, and, the 90-degree bends are covered with tar. And when you push down on the stone, it squashes a leather bellows, which forces air through the pipe and fires the poison dart. Yeah, if they had gone in there at night, would they have been okay to move ahead? You got an archmage that would love Trump's throne. Well, then go with limited wish or alter reality. Or if they want to spend months and months and months and months researching that kind of thing, I want it to do this, 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 and this. Just think of what spells closely mirror that, and then they need the finest possible throne they can afford. Spells like that, and a whole bunch of permanency. Like, I was trying to design a trap in a dungeon that worked like the money pit, the Oak Island money pit is supposed to work. Like, you dig past a certain level and part of the pit will start to flood. And I was talking to my buddy Scott, God rest his soul, about how can I make this work? How do I make this work in AD&D? What should this do? Can we sketch something out? And he said, dude, just say that that's what happens. The party goes down to a certain level, they dig, they find a flat stone, And when they try to remove it, they hear a clicking, ratcheting sound and water starts flooding the pit. It's kind of like, if you ever played Cyberpunk 2020, nothing in Cyberpunk 2020, which was written in the 1980s, late 1980s, is how computers work now in the year 2022. All right. You've got an RJ11 jack in the side of your head. The internet is a series of like neon pink triangles and blue spheres and green cylinders and stuff like that. That's not how this works. That's not how any of this works. But so what? If you want to sit down and try and make the players, it's like, all right, I want to hack the Arasaka database to get our hands on that new smart munition. Well, okay, what do you do? Well, I want to make a hacking roll. No. What commands do you do? I'll give that you've gotten to a login prompt. Tell me what you do. You don't know what version of Linux this is running. Don't make your players sit there and talk to you about port scanning and so on and etc. Just let it flow. Just go with it. Rule of cool, man. How does a beholder float? Is it anti-gravity? Is it farts? Is it helium? Does a beholder constantly have a squeaky, high-pitched voice? You just can't get too bogged down in the ephemera. So that's my opinion. $2 gas and innocent childhood. No shit. You can still buy $2 gas. Well, you can buy $2 worth of gas. It's not enough to fill this mug, but you can do it. New spell research, permanency wish is needed. Exactly. But don't get super bogged down in why stuff. Here's another example. Battletech. I once wrote a humorous short story that had people like angry at me, like sending me hate mail, called The Day the Physics Took Over. And it was about a famous mercenary unit in the Battletech universe that woke up one morning to go on their mission, but real world physics had taken over. Like most of their battle mechs weren't even able to take a step because they would just shear off their hip units because of the weight and the ground pressure. Some of them tried to fire their jump jets to move, and it just like pushed them up and forward, and they fell on their faces. And some of them said, okay, well, we'll just stand still and fire our weapons at the enemy. And when one guy was firing his autocannon 20 and it like snapped his battle mech 180 degrees around and then it fell on its back. This is just not realistic. It's not even remotely realistic. So why a gelatinous cube is willing to sit around a corner and wait for the sound of creatures splashing around on its kin so it can slurp in and gloop over and splop down and join in the fun. Just don't sweat it. It happens because it happens. The universe is a weird arbitrary place. Remember, even like an 11-year-old that can cast one cantrip is violating every law of physics in our universe if he's casting blue light. Photons appear out of nowhere, from nowhere, don't generate any heat, stay in a uniform sphere until they don't. And I think we're going to wrap up there. Yeah, I think calling Battletech hard military sci-fi is a bit of a stretch. Flatulence is what propels the beholder around. Fair enough. Works for me. 80% mouth, 45% eye, no butthole. Beholders float out of sheer anger. That works too. So I'm gonna give a big thanks to our supporters. Well, all you guys are supporters, really. It's just there's some folks on Patreon and Subscribestar. And by the way, if you're on Subscribestar, if you're a Subscribestar supporter, I only have a few supporters on Subscribestar, and that's fine. That's fine. I'm not panhandling, grifting, but you do have to manually do your charges. Until I get 5 people, it doesn't automatically debit. So please, if you're on Subscribestar, check that out and push that through if you want to. But I do want to thank Joshua Garlock, Lord Corion, Ricky Maru, Mobius, Kevin Reynolds, Doomsword Deathmaster, Mark Simpson, Damien 247, James F. Keck, William Smith, Dungeon Minister. Glad you made it here for a little while anyway, Padre. Manny Wall, Mark Corey, Kevin Wood, Todd Sharp, Carnivore Farmer, Rob Can't Say That You List, Jeremy Rule, Bo Ganora, Mikey Mank, and Sky Hernstrom. And I've been meaning to add, we had somebody join us over on Patreon. Let me see here. Pete Sullivan. Pete Sullivan. Thank you so much, Pete Sullivan. I'm going to add that right there. Is our newest Patreon supporter. Thank you, Pete, very much for supporting the show. So you guys, please have a wonderful evening. I will see you all tomorrow night, and we'll talk some more about A3. And then next week, we're going to get into A4, and A4 is a real trip. If you've never played it, you're in for fun. Have a great evening, guys. I'll talk to y'all later.